Good evening all. I'm Aditi Lamba with the Wednesday night edition of South Asian News. Welcome to Vision of Asia, voice of our community. We are coming to you from our studio in New York City. Here's what's happening tonight in the coronavirus pandemic. More than 1.1 million deaths from the novel virus globally, with tonight more than 41 million cases in the world. Cases of COVID-19 are rising across Europe, with the continent now in its second wave. This has led to some countries to implement new restrictions. France is proposing to extend a state of emergency into next year with curfews to be imposed. German region of Bavaria believes that the region is much closer to a lockdown. In the United States, we are looking at nearly 8.3 million cases of COVID-19 with more than 221,000 deaths. Experts fear that COVID-19 cases will begin rapidly to accelerate in about a week as US recorded more than 60,000 new cases just yesterday. Experts are also warning Americans of a difficult fall and winter as indoor gatherings increase during the season. Along with that, hospitalizations are seeing a high increase as well, with 10 states recording their highest numbers of hospitalizations. States Arkansas, Iowa, Kentucky, Montana, Nebraska, Ohio, Oklahoma, South Dakota, West Virginia, and Wisconsin. Idaho is seeing its largest spike in cases since the pandemic began, with infections right now up to 46.5%. The governor has urged all to take personal responsibility to curb the spread of this disease. In Illinois, the governor has announced that several regions of the state will now see more restrictive mitigation standards go into effect by the end of this week. New Mexico is also adding more measures to help curb the spread of COVID-19, and Washington state governor has announced new restrictions for college campuses amid increase in cases. So we again urge all to continue practicing social distancing, washing your hands, and wearing a mask. Also, we are less than 13 days away from the crucial presidential election on November 3rd, and we'd again like to remind all our viewers to make sure and vote this cycle. It is so important to get the South Asian American voice heard and seen. Go on vote.org for more information. With that, tonight we discuss more on what's at stake in these elections 2020, along with what's going on in virtual activities amidst premises. Here are the headlines. Assemblywoman Catalina Cruz urges South Asians to vote elections 2020, District 39, New York State Assembly. Northeastern United States Carrom Association presents play-at-home online tournament. Political strategist Pallavi Purkayastha addresses elections 2020 and South Asian Voice, Georgia. It's time for another short break on Vision of Asia, voice of the community. We'll be right back. And welcome back. This is Vision of Asia, and I am Aditi Lamba with the Wednesday night episode of South Asian News. Looking at politics now, we are less than 13 days away from the upcoming presidential elections of 2020. And again, we urge all our audience to make sure and vote this cycle on local, state, and federal levels to get your voices counted. On voting, Americans have already started voting with more than 40 million ballots cast ahead of Election Day on concerns about the coronavirus and to make sure their mail-in votes arrive time to be counted. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump and Democratic presidential nominee former Vice President Joe Biden are scheduled to face each other in their second and final debate tomorrow night and continue to campaign across the nation. These last days of campaigning are happening amid a surge of COVID-19 and hospitalizations in battleground states including North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Ohio, and Michigan. So how should one analyze both campaigns, and where do South Asians stand in terms of what matters to the community and its identity? We spoke to Assemblywoman Catalina Cruz of New York State's Assembly District 39, bringing much insight into these last days ahead of elections. Here's what Assemblywoman Cruz shared with us. I would love to get your comment on the SCOTUS hearings and Judge Amy Coney Barrett's nomination. Do you think this should happen before the elections, which is less than 15 days away?
Absolutely not. When the Republicans were faced with the same possibility of having a Democratic president appoint a Supreme Court justice before the election, they pushed and pushed and pushed, and we weren't able to do it. I think what's fair is fair, and we shouldn't be even engaging in the conversation until after the election. But the reality is, it's probably going to happen. She's probably going to get confirmed before the election, and we're going to be left with a very right-wing leaning Supreme Court, which makes it even more important for people to go out and vote, not just in the presidential election, but next year when we have the possibility of flipping the Senate and ensuring we have a greater majority in Congress.
Just little note over here. I would love to get your comment on how you're looking at Roe v. Wade right now and the answers that we have gotten from Judge Barrett on it. If it is overturned, or if there is a question of overturning such a big piece of legislature, what would you do? What is in your power to do in order to ensure that women have their rights?
Look, I think what's in the power of the state legislature has already been done. We've already passed last year a law that basically codifies Roe v. Wade into the state laws of New York. So the women in New York are going to be protected. I'm not worried about the women in New York. I'm worried about the women in other parts of the country where their right to decide what happens with their own body is going to be thwarted by politics. No one in politics should have a say in it, and yet here we are.
Yeah, that is so true. And, women's right is definitely basically on the ballot this year. And again, we want to reach out to all the women so that they go and cast their votes. While we're talking about ballots, and when I still have you here for the interview, Assemblywoman, I would love for you to address everyone on the importance of voting, and not just that, using the ballots that are given to them. Do you have full faith in the system of mail-in ballots as well as drop-off ballots? Because that has been a concern of citizens nationwide.
Look, I have to be honest, I don't. I feel like this precedent is capable of just about anything. So if you are able to go to the supermarket and make a line to get food with your mask on and do what you need to do to survive, you can go and stand on a line with your mask on and do anything you need to survive by voting.
Yeah, that is so, so important. What states are you watching right now?
Arizona, Florida.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about Texas too, and Pennsylvania.
Yeah, these were the swing states even in 2016 that really changed, the outcome of the decision. If you were to just address the community, Assemblywoman, on why they should advocate for their voice, why should they vote? What is the importance of that? What would you say?
I think many of the viewers come from countries where voting doesn't change anything. What we saw in 2016 is that voting for the wrong person can endanger your life, where not voting at all can endanger your life. And so that shows you how important it is to go out, cast your vote, and make sure that as a nation, we are saying loudly that we want and we deserve a change.
Yeah, that is so true. And in terms of the election results, President Trump hasn't quite agreed to accept it if it's not in his favor. Do you see this becoming a political issue after November 3rd? Do you believe that we'll have a decision on November 3rd?
We're not going to have a decision on November 3rd because there's mail-in ballots that have to be counted. I suspect we'll probably get a decision sometime in the 2 weeks after that. I do worry about a political coup and what that could mean if the president decides not to accept the results. But I think ultimately, if people are loud enough, he's going to have no choice, because otherwise the Democrats in Congress is going to have to act and physically drag him out of the White House if they need to.
We have now highlights from the recently held 2020 Play-at-Home Online Carrom Tournament presented by the Northeastern United States Carrom Association, which saw an interesting take on playing Carrom during this pandemic. The association prides itself in connecting Carrom players across North America to bring forth enthusiasts of the popular South Asian tabletop game together and engage more. The association is also affiliated with the United States Carrom Association and has been conducting these Carrom events since 2018, with this year done entirely virtually, with each player joining in from their own house. With more than 50 participants taking part in this event spanning 2 weeks, the winner of this year's Play at Home Carrom tournament was Luis Fernandez from Canada. Here are some glimpses of what took place at the Play at Home online Carrom tournament by the Northeastern United States Carrom Association.
What a wonderful tournament this has been. Wonderful 2 weeks where we had people from all over North America, Canada and USA participating. Great event, and we have the finals today between Luis Fernandez and Swan K. It's going to be an exciting 1 hour. So fasten your seat belts, hold on tight. It's going to be a rocking finals.
After looking at the score, our winner is Luis Fernandez. Many congratulations, Luis. Would you like to say something, Luis?
My best wishes to Swan, and hope to see you in another final next time. Thank you, commentator Subbu, and my best wishes to the organizers. The organizing team has done a wonderful job. It was professionally and brilliantly managed, and a lot of hard work went in, 24 hours a day for the last 3 weeks, and I'm very appreciative of what they're doing for North American Carrom. So thank you very much, and hope to play more tournaments like this in the future, and keep playing, stay safe guys, and love Carrom and love this family that we have.
And now I would like to announce our runner-up, Mr. Swan Kaptan. Many congratulations for you. Swan, are you there? You want to say something?
I didn't expect, first of all, I didn't expect to get up to the finals. And when I went through the semis, I was like not very happy with my scores in the semis, but somehow I got through. It must be because of pressure. And then I was hoping that, okay, I would get back my form in finals, since my form eluded me in the semis. I'll perform better, but unfortunately it didn't happen that way. But then I really enjoyed the whole tournament phase, and many thanks to the organizing team, and I cannot name them, each one of them, but I'm so grateful that we could get till this final, and then it went smoothly, and very happy to all the participants as well. Thank you.
So this has been a wonderful conclusion for the first online tournament that Northeast Carrom Association has done. And we are really grateful to Shakil Beg, Arshad and the committee that have come forward and taken this to the next level. Also a special mention to Prabhu Raj, the most excited member when anybody hits any slams.
Yes,
he always comes forward to promote Carrom. We really like this committee, and we want you guys to continue to take Carrom forward in North America.
It's time for the short break on Vision of Asia, Voice of the Community. We'll be back shortly. And welcome back. This is Vision of Asia, the South Asian news segment, and I am Aditi Lamba. Looking more at politics, tomorrow, President Trump and Democratic presidential nominee, former Vice President Joe Biden, will face off in Nashville for their final debate. Meanwhile, former President Barack Obama campaigned for the Biden-Harris campaign, while President Donald Trump holds a rally in North Carolina today. Eyes are on the swing states of the system, who more than often determine the final outcome of election states such as Pennsylvania, Florida, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa, North Carolina, and Arizona. This year also sees the state of Georgia as one of the swing states of 2020, with Democrats coming in strong in a traditionally red state. Georgia is one of the only 6 states to have shifted to the left compared to the whole nation in each of the 3 presidential elections, and many look at any movement to the left in that state as a very competitive race, with an increase in black and immigrant votes. So what is the possibility of Georgia turning blue in this election, and where are the South Asians leaning in Georgia? We spoke to political strategist and commentator Pallavi Purkayastha, urging all to vote in this election. Here's what Pallavi shared with us on Georgia. We had to bring you back on ITV Gold because we are less than 15 days from the election, the presidential elections on November 3rd. There's so much to discuss, and you are in Georgia. So let's begin this interview discussing a little bit about what's happening there in the state. What kind of insight could you tell us about how the Democratic and the Republican parties are doing in the state of Georgia? And have you seen any changes from 2016 so far in the state?
Oh, absolutely. There is a huge difference between 2016, even looking at 2018, what the election of Trump kind of did to the midterms. We have surpassed way over 1 million early voters, which hasn't happened in a very long time. I truly believe this is going to be the high water mark in terms of voter turnout this year. And a lot of it is happening because people are taking advantage of early voting. They are making sure that they're mailing in their ballots. And if you look across the state, the Democratic participation is through the roof. By the time election day comes around, I expect both sides to have increased participation because it's a very high energy, it's a very emotive election cycle, but I am definitely seeing just a lot of energy throughout the state, definitely in Metro Atlanta, definitely in the suburbs, which have been feeling the need to move away from the Republican Party. We see a lot of former Republicans now being very vocal about not just voting for Biden, but voting for Democrats down the ballot. So it's a very high participation year, and I'm excited to see what the numbers look like at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, November 3rd.
For sure. When we are looking at Georgia, Pallavi, traditionally the state has been voting red for as long as we could remember. Do you see a good chance for the state to turn blue this year?
Absolutely. We talk about trends, and we know that it's been maybe about 2 decades since Democrats had control of Georgia. Roy Barnes, I believe, is the last Democratic governor that we had. And you just look at what's been happening every 2 years. In 2014, Michelle Nunn and Jason Carter were on the ticket. They received about 45%. Hillary Clinton fell short by about 5 points. Stacey Abrams fell short by about 1.5 points. And you see the state gradually get younger, gradually get more and more diverse, and you see a lot of Republicans leaving their parties and voting for Democrats now, and you see that trend happening in a way that this year Georgia is absolutely in play. I had the honor of speaking at an event where Doug Emhoff, who will, I believe, be the next second gentleman, who's Kamala Harris's husband, he was here to talk about voter turnout, and you see these presidential tickets put in time, put in resources into Georgia. You can't watch 30 minutes of TV without seeing an ad from Joe Biden. And that shows you that if they're willing to put in the resources, they're seeing something in their polling that suggests that if we put in enough resources, we could absolutely turn Georgia blue. And I feel honored that we've done the groundwork for years and years to get us to this spot right now, and that the Democratic Party is putting in the money, is putting in the manpower to make sure we can get beyond that 50.1% mark that we need to get beyond.
Definitely. What issues matter the most in Georgia, according to you, Pallavi?
Healthcare. It's up and down healthcare. I feel like one of the reasons why we're doing so well is because the people on the other side of the aisle are trying so hard to push this defund the police narrative, which simply isn't working because most Democratic candidates are not for it. And they're trying to focus really into the looting and the rioting. And every person I know has condemned that. Every person I know is standing up for nonviolent protesters, the right to get your voices heard. And what I've seen on the ground is people are much more afraid of losing their health care or being in financial ruin because of an illness than they are about their neighborhood Starbucks getting looted. And now you're seeing the rise, even with the White House at one point said Georgia was leading the nation in infection rates. Every single person who had the coronavirus is now considered a pre-existing condition. And you see the ACA being debated about if it should be struck down or not. And people are genuinely worried that a small surgery, a small illness could financially ruin their families. And there are people who have political power to stop that and are simply not doing it. So up and down, anywhere I go, healthcare is the biggest thing. People are worried about what the virus is going to do. They're worried about if they'll be able to get their jobs back because they lost it due to the pandemic. And they're generally worried about if they can afford to get sick. And that's, we've made sure that they know that the Democratic Party is the party that wants to expand Medicaid, wants to make sure that people who don't normally have the resources to go to a doctor, that they don't get bankrupt because of one illness.
Definitely. I mean, we've all seen the ramifications on healthcare system, especially during COVID-19. And we are still looking for an answer to what to do about this healthcare system. Pallavi, let's talk about elections on a broader term here, because I also want to educate our audience in all of the states here that are located in the United States, but also talk about issues that are impacting everyone. Let's start this off by just discussing the most significant voters in this election. Who do you think are the most significant voters or new voters in this election that could maybe change the outcome? And how do you educate those voters the most?
It's hard to pinpoint the most significant voters. At the end of the day, any election in Georgia is won when you hit that 50% plus one mark. So your margin of victory could be your base, or it could be a specific demographic, or it could be new Americans who have never voted before. It could be newly engaged Americans who have never voted before. So depending on the region, I don't believe there's a specific demographic that we need to go after. But what I do think is extremely important is making sure that everybody who wants to vote is able to vote. Here in Georgia, the very first day of early voting, my dad stood in line for almost 3 hours. People were getting turned away for being at the wrong polling precinct when there is no right polling precinct within a county for early voting. There were areas in Cobb County where people were standing for 9, 10, 11 hours in line just to vote. Those tactics are really what we need to be looking at, because at the end of the day, whether it's incompetence, whether it's malice, nobody should have to wait in line for 8 hours to cast their ballots. So in terms of who's the significant population, it's every person who wants to go vote, and whether they're being able to cast their ballot in an appropriate manner of time. It's one thing to wait 30 minutes. It's another thing to tell somebody that they have to give up the entire day and stand in line just to exercise their First Amendment rights. So that would be my answer to what's significant. It's the ability to be able to vote.
Well, this wraps up our show for the night. Remember to send us your suggestions and get your voices and organizations on our show. Email us on events@itvgold.com or follow us on Facebook at itvgold. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel to watch many of our popular shows for free. Thank you for joining us tonight from Queens, New York. This is Vision of Asia, and I am Aditi Lamba. Please go out and vote.